Being an active duty police officer for a living, you see a lot of things. But this one incident was by far the scariest moment of my life, and it even caused me to reconsider my job. I had been working on the Detroit force for a few months, so I was fairly new to the job itself, but I enjoyed what I did. One night, my partner and I picked up and headed to a disturbance call where someone had called in complaining of hearing loud noises and what seemed to be some activity in an abandoned house near their street. As we neared the premises and pulled up alongside the house, we couldn't see or hear anything out of the ordinary. My partner started to think that this may have been a wasted journey and was willing to head off. But as he discussed this, I saw in the top window of this abandoned house what seemed to be a woman smiling at our car. I quickly grabbed the attention of my partner, but as I did, and we both looked, the woman was no longer in the window. With my partner taking my word and enough to know that there may have been people in there, we got out of the car and made our way to the door. With it being a dark night, we already had our flashlights in hand. The house was old, run down and creepy, so automatically, me and my partner had our guard up. When we opened the front door and entered the premises, we decided that the quickest way to search the house and to make sure top and bottom were covered was if one of us checked upstairs and the other checked downstairs. We headed in our separate ways. I took the upstairs, and as I started making my way up the stairs, the steps began to creak, sending an eerie echo through the house. I reached the top and shined my flashlight across the hallway. I noticed instantly this place was a dump. It did look like it may have had squatters, and being the one that saw the woman in the window, I decided to call to see if anyone responded. I opened a door and it creaked so loud it sent a shiver down my spine. It led to the bedroom I had seen the woman. As I moved my flashlight around the room, I couldn't see anything or anyone apart from the torn curtain blowing in the wind. I remember backing up, ready to check another room, when I heard the deafening shriek of my partner from downstairs, which sent my heart pounding. I ran down the stairs calling his name as I turned and flew up the hallway leading to the kitchen. I saw my partner and he had his hand up in the air, apologizing. I was thankful to see he was okay. He told me he had been patrolling the rooms downstairs, and as he had trouble opening the kitchen door, he'd barged it open. As he did, rats had scurried out and crawled all over him, and that is what had startled him. As we stood there in the kitchen, checks now complete, I conceded that seeing the woman may have been a figment of my imagination, so we headed back out to the car. It was as we reached the front door to the house, I heard it. A chilling cackle from behind, as if someone was laughing at us. This time it wasn't just me though, my partner heard it too. It came from the kitchen where we had both just been. Both clearly freaked out, we headed back to the kitchen. Again, we looked around the room and for the life of us, we couldn't see anyone, but we knew what we heard. It was at this moment as I lowered my flashlight, I saw it. There was a hatch in the floor that was slightly lifted up, and a set of wide eyes pierced through me, staring straight at me. I grabbed my partner and pointed at the hatch. As he looked though, it lowered shut, hearts pounding. We now knew where the laughter had come from, and the woman I saw in the window was surely who was down there. We quickly moved over to open the hatch. And as we did, my partner shone his flashlight down to a black hole, clearly another hidden room. We heard scurrying. So as I plucked up the courage, I slowly lowered my head to get a view. I could see a pale, gaunt woman in a dirty gown sitting in the corner, staring at me, smiling, which freaked me out. She was the only one down there. As I talked to her, asking her to come out, I was just met with creepy laughter. So my partner decided to go down and get her. As we got her out from under the floor, we failed with our questions as to what she was doing here, as she would not talk, but just laugh. We put her in cuffs and walked her back to our car as fast as we could, with it raining heavily at this point. We sat her in the back seat and again tried to get some answers from her, but there was something unsettling about her as she just stared back at us with her wide eyes and beady smile. So we took off, heading back for the station. And as we did, she continued with her creepy cackle. We were around a mile away from the house when the cackling suddenly stopped. I remember looking up into my mirror and I could feel the color drained from me. I slammed on the brakes, and as me and my partner looked into the back, it was completely empty. No sign of the woman anywhere. Just a pair of empty handcuffs on the back seat. Heart pounding and confusion in both of us. We jumped out of the car and searched the area, knowing that was impossible. We couldn't find her. And after calling it in and an extensive search party of the area and at the house, we later found from the descriptions we gave, a woman similar to how we described had recently died in that house after being murdered. I couldn't continue with my job for months after that, and to this day, I still can't explain what happened that night. It still haunts me now thinking about it, and I have never felt the same since. I never really believed in ghosts or the paranormal. I was a firm believer that it was all nonsense. But that all changed in one night that, to this day, remains the scariest moment of my life. My friend Jake was the same as me and didn't believe in any of that stuff. We knew of an abandoned hospital not too far from our town. The hospital was abandoned long ago, and many stories were going around our town about it. How it was haunted, and there had been sightings of figures in the windows. We didn't believe them, of course. It was discussed that one night we should go and stay the night to prove it was all as we knew, a load of nonsense, and of course, for the thrill as well. A few days later, after our talk, the night came where we had planned to go to the hospital and have fun with it. It was only the two of us going. I looked at the hospital and immediately got jitters. Something about it didn't seem right. Even though I didn't believe in that stuff or anything that was there, it was the whole idea of sneaking illegally inside that made me nervous. It was more Jake's idea, and I went along with it so he wouldn't consider me a wimp. But planning in the daylight was very different than sneaking inside the actual place in the dead of night. I remember Jake calling back at me to hurry up. He was already on the other side of the gate. He had that look of impatience on his face. I remember getting a tight knot in my stomach as I climbed over the gate. Then in the light of our torches, we made our way inside. The hospital had a very queer air to it as we looked around the empty, battered wards. The dead silence spread through the dark corridors as we looked for somewhere to settle. We ventured to the second floor, where Jake had a grin etched across his face as he joked so much for the place being haunted. I laughed as, when we were inside, I felt a little calmer. As we joked, I remember Jake's chuckle and his voice echoing back 100-fold through the dark, dead corridors, shattering the silence like broken glass. That was really creepy. Just then, a creaking sound filled the hallway as the door to a ward opened by itself right in front of our eyes. We looked on confused, as there was no wind that could have caused the door to creak open. We halted in our steps and stared, listening in silence. We started to move closer, thinking it could have been rodents scurrying about that brushed the door. That's when my chest started pounding as, faintly to my shock, I could hear the sound of what seemed to be a woman crying. Jake and I looked at each other as the blood drained from our faces as we turned back. We halted in our steps as another door creaked open right in front of us, where the crying we heard from the room behind us began sweeping through the darkness of the door in front of us. But it got louder and closer, as if someone was right behind the door. Then the crying stopped. Just like that. As we looked on in fear, froze to the spot. I looked on with intent into the darkness, hoping it was all my imagination playing tricks on me. When the silence broke, suddenly, the crying we heard bellowed out was replaced with a sinister scream. That was enough to send Jake and myself sprinting down the corridor. We couldn't help but look back, but I wish my eyes had just kept forward, as I saw to my horror an old, hunched-over, pale lady attached to a portable drip crawling down the corridor behind us. With the only way I can describe it, an inhuman voice, she screamed behind us, her voice dense as she made her way towards us. We screamed and ran towards the exit of the hospital. Beads of sweat trickled down my forehead and dripped down to my chin. We ran as fast as we could and were soon out of there. We climbed over the gate as fast as we could. When we fell to the other side, we looked behind us. There she stood, in the dark, shadowy entrance, her eyes insane, piercing through us. I blinked and she was gone, nowhere to be seen. That night, Jake and I didn't utter another word to each other as we made our way back. I can still picture her pale face to this day. It was the most traumatizing experience of our lives, and we never joked around about the paranormal and ghosts again. Just a quick one, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed these disturbing stories. Why don't you comment down below which one would have terrified you the most if it were you in that situation? Also, don't forget to subscribe just over to the left and look out for plenty more upcoming content by hitting that bell button. If you can, like, comment, and share. It really helps us out, and I really appreciate it a lot, you guys. Let us know what story subjects you'd be interested in hearing soon in upcoming videos. And thanks again. Take care out there, and remember, fear lies within.